Cosmoteer's modding system is quite simple, but there are also a lot of limitations that come with it. You can basically only manipulate some of the game files, like adding new stuff, replacing some values, or adding new parts. So the first thing I would recommend when you start out modding is that you check out the example mod. You can find it under mods and right here, for example. You can right click it, click on show folder, and you can see the structure of the mod. So what we are going to do is we are actually going to copy this and use it as a base for our own mods. Where do we put our own mod? You can click up here and show folder user mods. So I have a few user mods, you probably have less, and let's call it Klaus mod. Okay, and I will just copy in the example mod here. Let's actually put everything here. All right. So the most important thing about this is the mod.rules file. Here you can find basically everything that the mod does, and all of the other stuff is the files that this general file references. Again, I would highly recommend that you check this out and read all of the comments for yourself, but I will delete them to give some more clarity. Those things right here with the 2 slashes, those are all comments. That means the game will not recognize them as code, so you can write anything there. Okay. All right. I will change the ID. You're supposed to use your username and then the mod ID. I will just call it example mod 2. And the name that I'll give it is also example mod 2. Good. The author, I will have Klaus. And the logo, I will just keep the same. We already have a logo in here. That's just the default example mod logo. All right. The description, yeah, I will just leave this description as is. Okay, and the strings folder is this folder right here. It's basically the folder that contains all of the descriptions and the parts names and such. This folder is so that you could also, for example, like add a German translation, for example, and you could change that to super Amo in German. I don't think that's a good translation, but whatever. Okay, it's like you could do that, for example. Okay, but back to the original mod. So right here, this is the important stuff. This is basically where all of the action happens. Not this, all of the above. Okay, this is the actions array. And in here, like everything happens. So I will just give you a quick example on an action we can do. There are many different actions. All of the actions, or most of them at least, are explained in the example mod, but I will only give one concrete example. Let's just try to, for example, make it so that blasters deal a lot more damage. To do that, I will I will use a replace action because I want to replace the old vanilla value with a new value. For that, I will just use the example mod code that is already here. This is the end of the actions file, and I will just add this new action right here. So this is a new action. I will remove all of the comments. This ignore if not existing is not needed for what we are doing, so I can just delete it. And right here. Okay, so as you can see, an action is actually really simple. The actions above might sound intimidating because of all of the comments, but it actually isn't really more than like 3 lines of code. Of course, you can also do a lot more complicated action, but the base really isn't all that difficult. So we want to do a replace action, and we are replacing currently something else. What we are currently replacing is right. We don't know where all the things are. Like how do we replace the damage that the plaster is dealing? For that, you can search in your game files. For that, the easiest method is to open up Steam, click on your game properties, installed files, and browse. If you open this, you open the data folder, and in there are all of the different folders and data that you need. You might be searching for a parts folder now to find the heavy plaster part, but it's named the ships folder, which might be a bit confusing. So we go in here, and under Terran, you will find all of the parts in this game. So if we just search for Laser Blaster Large, this is the name of the plaster. But this is actually not what we really want, because the laser blaster itself doesn't deal damage. The projectile of the laser blaster deals damage, right? So let's actually leave this folder again, and the projectiles folder is called shots. So we go into shots, and we go into, where is it? Laser bolt large, and laserbolt large.rules. The .rules files are always the interesting ones. So we go in here, and do we see some damage? No. So if we scroll down, we see here hit, and hit operational, hit effects, and in here we finally see the damage. And we also see that the damage is modified by the electron buff. This basically means you get increased damage when you're inside an electron nebula. It's just one of the buffs that this nebula provides. Yeah, so how do we modify this value with an action now? Well, let's go back to the folder structure. It's in data, shots, laser bolt large. So we go back. We don't have to type data, but we do need shots. Shots, laser bolt large. Whoops, like this. And I didn't want to delete the file. Rename, copy the name, and laserbolterlarge.rules. Okay, so with this we basically get the file where the laser bolter is. Now we have to go into the structure of the file itself. So we see that this effect, this damage effect, is inside of hit effects, which is inside of hit operational, which is inside hit, which is inside components. So we will first have to copy components. Okay, it's in components. Then it's in hit. Then it's in hit operational. Hit effects. There are two different hit effects because they are like two pairs of parentheses. This means that this is an array and we want the first element of the array. To get the first element of an array, you simply type a 0 because the 0th element is the first one, not the first one. Like if you were to type a 1 here, you would actually go into the second one. Okay, and another slash, and the last one is called damage. So now we are finally at damage. Okay, now we have the right path, and now we have to tell it what we want to replace it with. So let's just copy this. And let's set the base value to something really big so that we can see the difference. And that should be working now. So we can go into the game, reopen the mods panel, and we should find the mod, hopefully. Yeah, here it is, example mod 2. Enable it, okay, restart the game. Okay, and we have immediately gotten an error. Unable to find node at path, Yeah, that is a pretty common error. That just means that we got our path wrong and that we need to modify it somehow. And I already know what's wrong because I left in the 1 where it should actually be 0. So let's put in a 0 and let's try again. And this time around the game actually started. Okay, it didn't start upright. This number I typed in here was too big, so I had to reduce it by 2 digits. But after that modification, the game really did start. So let's start a new creative game just to see if our changes have worked. I can have this thing. And a quick chip to test it against. And indeed, the blaster now destroys every part with one shot, so our modification was successful. Now that we have that, I will also quickly show you how you would go about implementing a completely new part and give you a concrete example. So most of the time, if you want to add a new part, there probably already is an existing part in the game that's kind of similar. So let's say, for example, you want to implement a bubble shield. So for that, you want to probably base it off the large shield because it is pretty similar. So let's go into the data file again, into the game files. And we said all of the parts are in ships Terran. So we search for shield gen large and search for the rules file. Oh, and what we can do is we basically, let's step outside even, we basically copy the whole folder and we put it into our mod folder. So mods, where's our folder? Klaus mod. And, oh yeah, just copy it in here. So I will rename this to bubble shield. And I will also rename the file to bubble shield. And now we have to change the ID. Klaus bubble shield. All right, and so for a bubble shield, we want to make the shield arc 360 degrees. So that's where it's you need a bit of experience to know what value you need to modify, because as you can see, the shield chart file is pretty large. So most of the time, like the things relevant to the part are either outside, like some basic stats, or they are in the components. And the thing we want to search for is arc shield. This is like the thing that basically generates the shield. So we see that by default, large shields have 160-degree arc. We just increase this to 360, and oh, whoops. And that, wait, I'm pressing the wrong key combinations. Okay, 360, and that's it. And what we also probably want to check is that it does not get blocked by other parts. So we will change this value to false. And yes, those are like the changes we want to make. We can try to reload the game now. Yes, we obviously cannot find the part because we have not added it to the game itself. We have only added it to the mods folder itself. So let's go to mods, Klaus mod. Like, we made a folder here, but the game doesn't know that we should even add this folder. So let's copy the name again and go into our file. Now we want to add this part. So for adding parts, there should already be something in here. Yes, this adds the super armor block. And we also want to add a part, so we will just copy this. Okay. This is many to add. So theoretically, we could also just add the bubble shield into the list above. But you can also do a separate action. Doesn't really matter. So now we have bubble shield.rules, which is, oh, whoops. Bubble shield and bubble shield.rules, and we are going into the part. So this is how you reference a part and add it to the game. And now if we restart the game, the shield should hopefully be there. And now the thing that I talked about before happened, because it can't find something. So we have to adjust the path a bit so that it can find it. For that, we go into the bubble shields.rules, and it wasn't able to find the base part. Base. Yes. Not even this path above. So let's take as an example the part from the example mod right here. It uses a different syntax from the path. because you just have to use a different syntax because you want to reference this from your own mod and not from the game files themselves. Okay, so you do this, and this should fix the first error. And the game started. Okay, it definitely did not take me half an hour to get this to work, but now if you will look into the file, I basically had to modify the shader to have the right path. Like in the error message, you can see what paths are wrong, but it's often really annoying to get the path syntax right, like with this with all of the symbols you have to do. So for that, a pretty good tool is the wiki. If you start on this homepage right here, you can go to modding, and you can go to paths, and here is all of the different syntaxes explained. And something that's also useful is actions, and there is also the syntax for all of the different actions. For example, replace, this thing right there. This was the thing where we replaced the damage that the blaster does before. And here are all of the explanations on what everything does, similarly to how the example mod does it. And in general, this is quite a nice resource to find different stuff you might want to implement. Okay, and the second thing we had to add is, if we look just a bit down, yeah, right here, we noticed that the large shield generator actually uses some textures that the small shield generator also has. So what this does is it jumps a folder back and goes into the small shield gen folder and fetches some picture from it. So the thing I just did is I went, let's go in here. I went into the game file, took the small shield gen folder and just copied it into my mods folder again. If you want to stay more organized, you can also just add a parts folder, for example, and put all of your parts into this folder. And you of course have to then add a part right here. Okay, but that's just for organizational purposes. You don't necessarily have to do that. So let's check it actually out in game. It would be pretty embarrassing if I said it worked and it doesn't actually work. Okay, it is still named large shield because we haven't actually changed anything. But as you can see, the shield arc is now 360 degrees. There seems to be a little artifact. I don't know exactly what that is about, but yeah, you can place parts here, and the large shield generator will still project through that. So we've basically successfully made a large shield. So the last thing you might want to do to the part is you might want to modify the name. For that, we have to go all the way up here and we have to change the name keys. I will leave the icon name key the same because we just reuse the icon from the large shield, but from the name key we can use bubble shield, for example. You can write anything in there, and bubble shield description for the description key. Okay, so name key, we go into our strings file. I'll show it again. This strings file right here I talked about before. You can down here bubble shield And here this is the key, and here you write the actual name of the thing. I will just call it bubble shield again. And you can also give it a description. The description will, we will just give it a shield, a 360-degree shield. And with that, we will just restart the game one last time and see how that affects things. Alright, and now that we are back in game, if we hover over it, we indeed see that in the description it's called Bubble Shield, and the description says a 360-degree shield. The name on the blueprint itself down there is still large shield, so there's another thing we have to modify. Oh, I think actually we might have to change the icon name key. I think that might actually be this thing down there. So you would have to still change that to bubble shield. But now you know how to implement parts. And yeah, basically modding always requires you to do those actions, and sometimes you have to add additional files. If you have questions, there's a great Cosmoteer Discord with its dedicated modding channel and some useful pins. And yeah, just feel free to ask questions there, and the people are pretty helpful there. And yeah, well, happy modding then.